2009, not 1969. A scene in Northern Ireland that most people thought was long gone.
It's just has to be done if they want the roots out.
Plenty of people that think they deserve it, and that cop deserve it.
The rest of the world has moved on, but a dangerous minority don't seem to have got the message.
What would you say to the widow of Stephen Carroll?
Ultimately, the British government is responsible.
They may be in denial, their language a throwback. But this is what the paramilitaries told Panorama a year ago.
Our aim is to attack British interests in Ireland, whether that be through government buildings, whether it be through soldiers, whether it be British barracks.
And that was no idle threat. If you live in the rest of the United Kingdom, you could be forgiven for thinking that the last 10 years brought only peace and prosperity to Northern Ireland, with former enemies forgetting their differences and working together. And largely, you would have been right. But when 2 soldiers and a policeman were murdered 3 weeks ago, it highlighted that for some people, the war never ended, and for their victims, the violence never stopped.
Wexford, a quiet port in the southeast of Ireland, far away from the murder scenes in the north. These Republicans are here today to remember 3 dissidents from the past. IRA men executed by the newly born Irish state because they refused to accept the partition of the island more than 80 years ago. Two of those laying wreaths are not long out of jail, caught with guns at a weapons training camp. They're not mourning the 2 dead soldiers and policemen here.
Well, last weekend we heard shots that echoed around the occupied 6 counties, echoed around the whole country, and that echoed around the world. And they're echoing in the ears of Martin McGuinness and Jerry Adams at the moment.
It is Martin McGuinness, a former IRA leader himself, who angers them most. He's left his violent past behind and is now part of the political establishment he used to revile. After the recent killings, he stood shoulder to shoulder with the Chief Constable and made history.
They are traitors to the island of Ireland. They have betrayed the political desires, hopes and aspirations of all of the people who live on this island, and they don't deserve to be supported by anyone.
Let me send this message to Martin McGuinness and Jerry Adams. We are not the traitors. We stand fast to the 1916 proclamation, democratically endorsed in 1918. It is you who are the traitors.
The rally was organised by Republican Sinn Féin, the political cheerleaders of the Continuity IRA. That's the group which killed Catholic policeman Stephen Carroll of the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the PSNI, 3 weeks ago in Craigavon.
My life, part of my life, is gone. You know, I just feel that he was my life. My son and my husband were my life. And I just feel now that I'm dead inside. If they just realised that we only get one chance at life, that a piece of land is a piece of land, and at the end of the day, my husband's just going to get 6 foot by 6 foot, and that's all any of us are going to get.
This is the old Belfast Crown Court, which many Republican leaders passed through down the years. It's a monument to the past, which is where most people wish violent politics remained. So why do some people still cling on to it? Rory O'Brady is a former IRA Chief of Staff. The 76-year-old is a lifelong Republican. He led a split from Sinn Féin in 1986, believing the younger leadership were getting ready to sell out. He formed a new party called Republican Sinn Féin, the associates of the Continuity IRA, which emerged sometime later.
What would you say to the widow of Stephen Carroll, to Kate Carroll? What would you say her husband had died for? Could you tell her how a cause had been advanced by her husband's death?
I would say that, as I have said, that all loss of life is regretted, and in this case, of course, the same thing, but that ultimately the British government is responsible in that it recruited that constable into its forces and put him in harm's way.
It'll only continue to happen though as long as people think the way you think.
Well, I think there should be a new Ireland, a free Ireland with its national independence. I don't think that that's a crime, and I have advocated that and will continue to advocate it.
But murder is a crime. Soldiers Patrick Azencar and Mark Quincy were hours away from leaving for Afghanistan when they were gunned down outside Mazarine Army Barracks north of Belfast by the other main dissident group, the Real IRA. They were boys, aged just 9 and 11, when the last soldier was shot dead here in 1997.
We were closer than like my brothers and sisters. He just made me laugh so much whenever I was down. He just always just did make me smile and say things just to crack me up. He was loved by everyone. I'm heartbroken he's gone and I'm gonna miss him so much.
The one thing that I'm not convinced on, that these people had a strategy. In the past, I think we understood the strategies. I would be more on the line that the present grouping, that small strategy, is just mayhem and atrocities to keep the pot boiling.
So exactly how do the killers think the deaths will advance in any way their ultimate goal of United Ireland? John Grieve, the former head of the anti-terrorist squad in London, monitors Irish paramilitaries for the Westminster and Dublin governments.
They would want to see a return to the days of military presence, helicopters, watchtowers. They would want to undermine all the progress that the peace process has taken.
What would the return of, say, watchtowers, the helicopters, the army, what would that mean?
Well, it would make people begin to feel that they were being oppressed again, as opposed to being policed in a normal way, which is what the PSNI have achieved.
A year ago, a BBC team made contact with people who said that they could take them to meet the Real IRA. The team, including journalists from Panorama, were told to cross the Irish border, where they were put in the back of a van and driven to a secret location. They met 3 men in paramilitary uniform, one carrying an automatic rifle, who identified themselves as part of the Real IRA Army Council. In a 50-minute interview, they said it would suit their aims if violence forced the British troops back on the streets, saying, "It would shatter the lie of those hypocrites who sit in Stormont and try and tell us that somehow the British have left." And they said the scope of what they termed legitimate targets was so big. Targets included